I'm Robert, Cooksaw Manufacturing. I want to show you a new mill that we're introducing to our lineup. This is going to be the SW44 Sawmill. What makes this mill a little different is it will do the wide slabs. I can cut 44 inches, and that's in between our guides. So from guide to guide, we can cut a 44-inch wide slab. It's portable. At 44 inches, this mill is below our legal limit of 8'6". I can take this mill down the highway. So we have a trailer package option for this mill, and it can be completely portable up to highway speeds. We've also got some features on here where I can put the smaller logs on there, and I'm able to easily and efficiently handle the smaller logs. So we'll walk through all the features of this machine and kind of show you what it is all about, see if it's going to fit your needs. So one of the first things I want to show you on this mill is our band wheels. Band wheels are extremely important on any band saw mill. We are using all steel wheels. So we've got metal doors, latch, swing open, easy access to our band wheels. And these are all steel wheels. So there is a crown on this wheel. You have an idle and a drive wheel. I want to see about 4,000 to 5,000 hours out of these wheels, so I am getting very good life out of them, and then you can send them back to us to be reworked if you're running the mill that often, and you get to that point, about 4,000 to 5,000 hours, we can rework these wheels, but I get very good service out of them. These wheels are precision ground and balanced. So if I put a indicator on here, I am running, I hate to say perfect, but near about as good as you can get on that wheel. So when my blade's going around it, that blade's spinning about 5,000 RPMs, 5,000 feet per minute. Band wheel spinning around at 850, 900 RPMs. I don't have any pull and stretch on my blade. If we look at this blade when we're running, it looks like a pencil line coming across. It's just as smooth as it can be. That's going to give me better blade life and better quality on my cuts. I know a lot of manufacturers are using belts or rubber, but that steel wheel allows me to run diesel fuel on my lubrication. We've got our reservoir that is part of the frame. I get about 3.5 gallons in this reservoir, and we like diesel fuel, automatic transmission fluid, kerosene, paint thinner, any kind of oil-based lubricant. That's going to cut any pitch, any debris, and it's going to keep my blade clean. If I can keep my blade clean, it's going to stay very cool. So we've got a drip system on the in feed and the out feed of the machine. There's a ball valve here on top, so I can turn that on and off. And then we have a little sight glass with a needle valve on the back side, and I can adjust the flow rate. Now about a drop a second is dripping onto this felt pad here, and that felt pad is wiping on the blade, so it is very conservative. I don't have any spray, I'm not getting diesel fuel on my wood, and I'm not really just pouring it on there, so it's very conservative. That reservoir lasts me several days of sawing. Now it's going to vary depending on what I'm cutting, if it's hardwood, if it's softwood, green, dry. There's some variables there, and I've got adjustment where I can turn that up or slow it down. But generally about a drop a second is where I'm going to start on that. Wiping on the blade on the in feed side, that's going to be my primary, and then also have it on the out feed side. The idea is if I put an oil coating on that blade before that blade gets into the cut, I can keep it clean a lot easier than I can clean it. So we're trying to prevent it. That keeps my blade cool, keeps my blade running smooth, eliminates any pitch buildup. When you get pitch buildup on your blade or your wheel, that's going to change the balance of it and the location that it rides. If that pitch buildup gets on my roller guide, that roller guide's precision grind. We grind those true, it's just as flat and square as it can be. Well, if I put a 1/16 of an inch of sawdust pitch buildup on there, that's now angling my blade up or down. If I put that on my band wheel, this band wheel has a crown on it. That crown is what's tracking the blade. That sawdust gets bad enough where you've got pitch buildup on there, that blade's going to move it out. It's going to move to the high spot on that wheel, which is now where that pitch buildup is. So keeping that blade clean, it's eliminating the heat, but it's also keeping my cuts true. Keeps my guides in alignment, keeps the blade tracked on the band wheel. So on our mills, we are controlling our blade using a roller guide system. There's a couple very important things on the sawmills. We talked about our band wheels. That's really keeping that blade running smooth. But if I cannot control where the blade is, I don't know how it's going to cut. So on our roller guide system, we have 8 adjustments on it. I'm able to tilt that blade. I can tilt it down, I can tilt it up. I'm able to tilt this guide left to right, and I'm able to slide it in and out. I've also got down pressure adjustment on it, so I can bring that guide straight up or straight down. So all this is built into the roller guide system. This is our fixed guide, so that is going to stay in the same spot. And we also have our movable guide that'll move in and out depending on how big of a log that you're cutting. The adjustments on this guide, there's square head bolts going around the back, all 4 corners, and they are pushed in on a key stock that is tapered round. So I can tilt it up and down. Up and down is gonna be my primary adjustment. That's what I'm most concerned, most focused with. So I'm able to tilt this guide to where that blade is just perfectly flat, parallel with the bed of the mill. Not necessarily going for level, because my mill doesn't have to be level, it needs to be flat. So I want this guide lined up just as flat as it can be with the sawmill, and that's where I'm gonna get my straightest cut. If this blade is tilted up, that's the direction the blade's gonna cut. If I've got it tilted down, I have no control over it. Once that blade starts to move up or down, well, now we've got a reaction. If it goes up, it's got to come down. And that blade's just going to go up and down all throughout the cut. If I can keep it from ever moving, it won't ever move. Once we start that motion, it's just a losing fight. So I control my blade with the roller guide. We're using greasable guides on this machine. So I do want to maintain them. Every time I change a blade, I'll just put a squirt or 2 of grease in there. It doesn't take a whole lot, but the guides are spinning about 5,000 RPMs. I do want to keep them well greased. The greasable bearings will outlast sealed bearings. I offer a sealed bearing option if that works better for if you've got a special situation, but the greasable bearings will outlast a sealed bearing as long as I'm maintaining them. So you've got all your adjustments on the guides. Longevity, these guides are case hardened, and then after that they are precision ground again. So they are very true. When there's pushing on this blade, there is some down pressure, and that holds that blade in place to allow me to get that accuracy on the cut. But the guide spins with the blade. I don't have any friction on it. It's not causing any heat on the blade itself. So it runs very true, able to give me very good control. With them being case hardened, we're gonna see about 300 to 500 hours out of those guides. And then they do start tapering them around. You can send them back to us to be reground, or it's very easy to replace. There's a nut on the front. Taking that off, sliding the guides off. When you buy new ones from us, they come with a bushing, so I slide the whole set back on there, tighten the nut, and I'm back up and going. No additional adjustment necessary on it. If I wanted to change blade size on my sawmill, I can put an 1¼ inch up to a 2-inch guide on here, and with that adjustment, that allows me to move that guide to the blade where it's positioned on my sawmills. So I've got a lot of adjustments built into here, a lot of options. Now it'll come set, we'll talk about it, we'll recommend some things to you, but you've got a lot of options. If you learn more, change your style of how you're sawing, you're not fixed, you're not held down into one spot. You can always grow with it. So we know we got our blade running on very smooth wheels, reduced friction. Our roller guide spinning with the blade gives me full control over the blade. Next thing we're looking at on our blade is how do we tension it? We are using a spring tensioner system. It is a live tensioner, active tensioner. It is going to compensate with the blade. So very, very simple design. We've got tension on the blade now. If I go to loosen the tension, handle slides in, and I'm just cranking it down. Gives me easy access to the blade. My doors flip open, blade pulls right off, put a new one on. When I have that blade on the band wheels, when I go to re-tension it, cranking it back up, we have a mark and indicator here. Line it up flush with my mark, and I know where the tension is. It's easy, it's simple, and it's very effective. When that blade is going through the wood, the blades don't necessarily stretch like this. They stretch more this way. Those teeth are pulling apart. It's not much, maybe 10,000ths. But if I have we'll call a dead tensioner on there, just a shaft or a block or a jack, and I don't have that spring in there with it, when that blade gets longer, the blade gets looser. With that spring in there, when the blade gets a little bit longer, it maintains constant tension. So I don't have that movement from a loose blade. I'm able to keep that blade tight throughout the entire cut, starting in the small end, going to the wider cut, in a hard knot, seeing some resistance in it. I've got constant tension on that blade. When I've got 44 inches cutting through, I've got to keep that blade tight. We've already talked about alignment. That's extremely important as well. But tension on that blade, if it's not tight, it will not cut straight. Now, because of that, that will improve my blade life. Now, the steel wheels being perfectly ground, that helps. The roller guide spinning with the blade, that helps. But I don't have that blade contracting and pulling back together. It's constant under tension. It's not just sitting there moving in and out every time we hit a hard spot on that log. So it does extend my blade life as well. So very easy to use, no guesswork where my tension is, and it helps on my blade life and helps control throughout the cut. I do have tracking adjustment built into this system. So that band wheel can be tilted left and right, and that moves where the blade is. On the band wheel, we're looking for that gullet just flush to hair sticking out. So I have that built in, easy to get to, easy to access, not a constant adjustment. You set it once, and as long as you stay with our blade, you never have to adjust it again. I've got adjustment built in here on the shaft. I've got adjustment on my band wheel top to bottom. Not something you should mess with, but it is there in case, I don't know, a lot of things happen. There's big equipment around these mills. If it gets bumped, knocked out, I can put it back in place. I'm not shut down, I'm not broke down, I'm not waiting for parts. I've got adjustment on there so I can set it and get back to sawing. On the drive side of the sawmill, we have our drive bearing assembly. That unit is made out of DOM pipe, and we have 2 tapered roller bearings pressed into it. Years ago, we got away from the pillow block bearing system, and since then, I can keep my band wheel tight, solid. I don't have the vibration, I don't have the play out of it. Very rigid system, holds up very well. Pillow block bearings are not designed for overhanging load. The tapered roller bearings, it's able to withstand the pressure that we're putting on our saw blade. That's why they use them in the axle of your truck. So with a DOM pipe, the tapered roller bearings, very heavy built system. I get good life, good service out of that. We're using a 2 1/8 inch shaft. It is a special shaft designed just for this application. Still got a few secrets we hold on to on that. But on your band wheel, there's a taper lock bushing, presses into the band wheel itself, and it is ground as a unit. So the band wheel is pressed on the shaft with the taper lock bushing, and it is matched. It is a superior system for keeping that wheel true, keeping it solid, and keeping that blade running without the vibration on it. So very, very heavy unit. Now these are mounted onto a tracking plate. So just like we have on the idle side, I can tilt that band wheel left and right, and also I have adjustment top and bottom. Left and right is for tracking, so if I were to change, after we set this mill up, and every mill you get from us is preset, but if you were to change blade sizes on it, I can tilt that band wheel left and right, and that moves the blade, centers it on the wheel. And I can also tilt it top and bottom. Not a common adjustment, call me before you get into it, but it's there if we ever decide that we need it. So getting this saw head through the cut, adjusting our height, I do have power feed options available for this mill. So for our up and down, we have a drum switch and a brake. Very easy, simple to operate. So when I go to pick it up, I've got a scale pointer and I've got magnetic scales. So I can pull these scales off and I can get different angles on it, adjust it, swap the scales out. So I've got options for setting the mill up for whatever thickness that you're cutting. If I'm doing dimensional lumber with my smaller logs, or if I'm doing big slabs on my bigger logs. We've got options. You can put different scales on there for whatever that you're working with. But the up and down power feed, it gets me to my number, gets me really close, and then I still have my crank handle on here. So on my precision cuts, I can fine tune this, that last 1/8 of an inch or so, and really dial it in and keep the thickness on my board extremely accurate. So I've got the power feed option. Takes a lot of the work off of me, but still with that hand crank, we dial it in, keep those precision cuts on the thickness of my boards. On the forward and reverse, we're actually going to get this up a little bit over my log. So we'll get that head raised up where we can move back and forth. There's a power switch on and off just for the forward and reverse system. And I've got a speed controller on it. So the reverse, I've got a push button and I've got variable speed. Slow it down, speed it up. Generally after I cut and I'm coming back, I want a quick pace. It's not gonna run me over, but I'm not sitting here waiting on it either. Going forward, when I ease into my cut, especially on my big logs when I'm cutting slabs, I want fine control. I want to really get into that cut nice and slow. And once the blade's in the wood, then I can speed it up. On my smaller logs, dimensional lumber, not that critical. With the alignment, the setup that we have between our band wheels, our guides, and our tension system, I can hit the wood a little bit harder than a lot of comparable mills are able to. But when I'm doing big slabs, nice, slow, easy, steady. The forward and reverse power system, that is pulling from both sides of the sawmill. So I don't have any tweaking or torquing on the head going through the cut. When I get into big wood, I'm generally sawing slow. When it's that big, it's hard. That's just the nature of it. I've got to stay slow and steady. So if I were to manually be pushing this through the cut, it's a lot of effort. Not impossible, but I am pushing this through and trying to keep that head slow and consistent. You do that all day and you know it. So the power feed option is very helpful, very beneficial for getting myself through big logs, since it's pulling on each side of that saw head. On the saw head or the carriage itself, it is a 4-post head. So we've got 2 uprights, 2x2 tubing, and then we also have our chrome slide as well. So you could almost call it a 6-post head. Now it is still a 4-post head. That chrome rod is just a slide for our head moving up and down. All the weight's picked up on heavy 60 roller chain. So it picks it up evenly. It's not coming out of alignment. I'm not cutting beveled boards out of it. But a 4-post head, very well supported. My head's not bouncing as it goes through the cut. Keeps me with a straight cut, clean looking cut. So the chrome shaft up and down, that's sliding on bushings. Good wear out of those. The 4-post head, we're using Kohler gas engines on here. Also have some other engine options. So if you want this mill, you don't plan on moving it, you want to set it up stationary, we've got some electric options we can put on there. If you want more horsepower, we've got some options we can put on there. So reach out to us and we'll kind of walk through what's available for the power plant on these Kohler engines. This one here is a 26.5 horsepower. This would be standard on it. It is a fuel injected engine. So I don't have the choke on it, just throttle up and down, crank the engine up, run it wide open, and that's where I'm going to saw at. So very easy to use, very reliable. Kohler's got a 3-year warranty that they offer on this engine. If you've been around Kohler engines, just about every lawnmower shop, I'm sure you've got 3 or 4 in your hometown. Everybody's a Kohler dealer. It's easy to get parts. It's easy to get service. Been around a long time. We've had very good success with them. So we like those Kohler engines. Good power plant. Gives me plenty of power for cutting through the wood. If you're like some of us and you always got to have more power, give me a call. We'll get you set up on it. So know about all the features on the saw head, how we're controlling the blade. We really focus on the blade because the blade does all the work. If it can't cut straight, the rest of it's kind of pointless. So you know how that's done, why we're doing what we do. Now that being said, if I don't have anything to support my log or support my carriage, that doesn't do me a whole lot of good. We are using 3x6 heavy wall tubing as our frame, as our track. We're using angle iron, and we use V-track rollers for that carriage to move back and forth on. That V-track roller, it's not a cheap little bearing. It's a solid block of steel that we are machining that roller out of. Get good life, good service, runs true. It's not bouncing up and down going through the cut. Anytime I hit a little piece of debris or sawdust on there, it's designed to kind of shed that off, so it's not picking up as it goes through there, and I don't see that little bit of rise in my cut. Heavy wall frame. We've got 7,000-pound jacks on here. We've got 8 jacks on here. This mill is built to be portable. It's built to hold big logs. We've got it very well supported to keep it stable. So when I'm loading logs on here, it's not tipping over, it's not skating across. I'm not gonna bend or damage one of those jacks. So very well supported frame, very heavy built frame. This mill comes standard on a 16-foot log cut. So it is longer than that, but I can fit a 16-foot log on the frame. We can extend that out. Our frame is solid, one piece end to end. It's not bolted together, it's not welded together. So if you were to, we can build this custom, if you were to want a 24-foot log cut, that's one solid piece of tubing from end to end. We don't have the standard mill that we add on to it. We start with a long piece of steel and build that mill just for you. So it's very heavy built, very well supported, able to handle the big logs and make it down the highway. We've got stainless caps on each rail. I've got that for a couple reasons. One, is pretty, it looks good. But more practical than that, you can get iron stains on your wood. So it does help prevent the iron stains that we're going to see if that wood sits up there for some time. When I'm rotating logs around, there's going to be less friction on here than there would be on that steel. So it does help me rotate my log. It does keep the iron stains from coming on it. They are bolted in place, so if you didn't like them, you can remove them, but it will come standard with the stainless steel caps on each rail. It does more than just pretty on there. We are using a single axle on this machine. It is portable. I can take it highway speeds, no problem. I probably keep it under 75 miles an hour, but it is a single axle. You're going to be in here working. So if I've got tandem axles in here, it is very hard for me to get to that log, do what I need to do. So it is it's an oversized, it's a very heavy built axle, and it does have brakes on it. So when you're towing it, you can hook it in, and you do have electric brakes on that axle. So it's a one size fits all. I can do the small logs, I can do the big logs, I can take it down the highway. When I set it up, it's solid, I know it's well supported. So whatever you're looking to do, this machine can be made to fit to do that. So we got our heavy frame holding the log into place. We have our squaring arms and we have our clamps. Squaring arms have a foot peg, so I can grab it, bring it down, I can kick it up. This mill is a do-it-all mill. So I can put the big logs on here. I can also put the small logs on here. So we have two squaring arms positioned on the sawmill. So these are removable. So that does slide out. So when I've got my big logs, I pull it out, set the log on there, and I can do my slab work. If I'm doing the smaller logs, I'm making 2x4s, 1x6s, whatever it is, I can put these arms back into place, and they can be squared, or they are squared with the frame. And the reason we do that, this is designed to be a portable sawmill. That frame's up off the ground. When I'm doing big logs, I've got to have a big frame to support it on, and a big frame's hard to reach across. So across this frame, if I'm trying to clamp this log, and I'm sliding way over here on my 16-inch logs, it's not very efficient, it's not very comfortable. So we've got this extra squaring arm into place, and it's positioned like it would on our MP32. So technically I can do a 32-inch log using that arm right there, but it's much easier to get my clamp into two. If I'm using a cant hook to rotate on the smaller logs, I can certainly do that. I'm not reaching across, I'm not climbing over into. This log will be positioned where I can easily get to it, so it's very efficient. It's the do-it-all mill. I can do the big slabs, I can do the small logs, and that squaring arm certainly helps me out with that. Now on our clamping system, I've got an 1.5 inch shaft that this slides back and forth on. And then it's a cam locked handle. So it's quick, efficient, slide it up next to the log, that locks into place, holds it tight, holds it solid. Very easy, very quick. I use that more on the smaller logs than I will the big logs. When you've got a big log on here, that big log is very heavy. It's not gonna move if I want it to. But I've got all that in place, so I can put any log up here and cut any size board up to 44 inches. If I were to talk while I'm cutting, can you hear me clearly? slab. Now whenever I'm sawing, I really like to kind of listen. I can really get in tune with the machine. I'm listening to the sound of the engine. I can hear the RPMs, feel when it pulls, when I hit hard spots. Also listen to the sound of the blade. I can tell when it's cutting that wood smooth, when it's getting some resistance on it. I start getting a kind of pitch build up on the blade. So I'm really in tune when I'm sawing, listening to it. Now a lot of times I like to sing when I saw. Usually like to do that because nobody else can hear me. Since y'all are listening in, we better not do it on this one. Hey, appreciate you watching our video. Again, this is the SW44. It can do the wide slabs, it can do the small board, small logs. It's portable. What we had on there, 36-inch diameter, 36-inch at its widest point on the butt end. That's a big log down here in South Alabama though. But it cuts great. It's got the power feed options, easy to cut with. But if you're wanting to see more, you can always stop by. We'd be glad to show it to you, give you a demo of the machine, give me a call. We can set you up if you want any options, any additions. We can always work with you on that as well. And if you enjoyed the video, appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, and comment.